okay. I'm okay. I've been busy. You've been up to a lot. What have you been up to?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's a very busy time to do anything with emergency services, that's for sure. Um, and everyone wanting to work remotely and be hands off, they look to drone technology. Yeah, it's been hectic, and there's lots of funding applications that the government have put quite a good pot of money together for anything COVID related,
Yeah.
which lots of drone bids going in that, and they've also got a separate Futures Flight Challenge, which was set to happen anyway. But so that workload was predicted, but it's been on top of other funding bids for COVID stuff as well. So
Hey.
yeah, lots of bidding. Hopefully at least one of them is positive. Let's hope. But
So
yeah.
how are they using drones in the emergency services? Sort of, because I know the work you do is usually drones, like big fires and things, and having that lovely procedure thing you came up with. So
Yeah.
what's changed? What are they looking for now then during COVID?
I guess the adoption rate of drone technology has increased. So some emergency services had no drone technology team, and they didn't think they needed it, and now they're realizing actually using drones, we can speed up response. We can also, a new use case that they're using a lot is to broadcast safety messages via the drone itself. So the police officers can be from a safe distance, and there's a speaker on the drone, and they're just broadcasting safety messages.
Okay.
Yeah, they're using the thermal cameras to detect like crowds of people as well. Lots of different use cases, but I think yeah, there's been the biggest change has been in their thought process, and they're more like pro innovation at the moment, and that has caused a lot of naysayers to turn to drone technology now. Which, so it hasn't been reinventing the wheel. They're using drones as they always have,
Yeah.
other than broadcasting safety messages. They're just using them a lot more now.
Oh, well, I suppose because a lot more people now are moving to them, they've got to learn some sort of policy or procedure around using them.
Yeah, the drone training part, that's the bit that's most difficult to achieve right now, and we're all trying to work remotely. So a lot of drone schools actually, they're doing their course through Zoom, which beforehand wasn't allowed. The CAA required you to be taught in person,
Yeah.
but of course they relaxed on that rule, and it's enabled. I think some drone schools are actually doing more courses than they were before, because they can do it from their office rather than traveling all over the country to do it.
Yeah.
So
Busy
yeah,
trained by drone.
yeah.
Where to train by drone. Because I keep seeing, because before all this happened, you were all over the place, all over the world, talking to so many people. Tell me some of the stuff you were doing before all this.
Oh well, yeah. So I was traveling a lot. That's obviously stopped, which is upsetting because that became my favorite part of the job. But yeah, see, doing a lot of research in such a cutting edge technology for emergency services. It's actually quite a close knit community, the emergency services, when you start changing things, because not many people change things in that world. And so, whilst I was doing all of my work in the UK, Australia came calling, America came calling, UAE. So I went to Dubai and presented at the Dubai Air Show. They had a search and rescue specific seminar going on at the same time. Then Amsterdam as well, for Amsterdam Drone Week. So although I wasn't reaching out to them or I think that's the perk of doing things online, is you don't really know who's going to see it.
No.
And although I wasn't purposely trying to reach those communities, I reached them through word of mouth and through my online exposure as well. So it was quite exciting.
But then
Yeah,
you are a
keep those in mind.
specialist. I mean, if you think about it, we've had this conversation before, haven't we? That there are many of you out there doing what you do.
Some
As
people
a
say that's a good thing.
female in a predominantly male world.
Yeah, yeah.
Is,
Yeah.
is it still the same, or do you see new innovations coming up? Do you see new ways of doing things in the future?
Um, Yes, lots of new ways. I think the biggest going to be explosion for the drone industry will be drone deliveries. There's increased demand for. So right now, if we just look at the impact of COVID, biggest thing it's impacted or changed for the better for the drone industry is public opinion. And it's something that the drone industry, we've been trying to change it for years, and a lot of money's been thrown at it. But when everything's going well, it's really difficult to change opinions. But when we're hit with new challenges, new struggles, opinions change like that. And so I think actually we've gone from people saying, oh, I don't think I'll trust a robot, a drone to deliver something to my house, to like, actually I'd rather a drone deliver something to my house than have a person deliver it. So there's social acceptance, and then there's the increased demand for deliveries. People don't want to leave their house, so they want everything delivered to them. And then there's an increased demand for medical supplies as well. Whether that be COVID test kits or vaccines further down the line, there's a lot of demand. And before all of that, there was already a demand for quicker delivery times. People want their delivery as soon as they bought it.
And also,
exactly, yeah. We just want everything to be quicker. And there was already quite a need to reduce carbon emissions as well. So it was all gearing up towards drones, but the missing puzzle pieces were the public acceptance. We've got that now, but also the regulatory framework. And to deliver anything, if it's for COVID or otherwise, we need to be able to fly further than we can see. Right now, as a drone pilot, you can only fly visual line of sight up to 500 meters. Without, if you want to go further than that, you have to apply for specific exemption or permission to do so, which is quite a timely, costly process. And COVID has brought out new exemptions for the emergency services, the people that need to fly beyond visual line of sight to help people. It's expedited that development as well. So now we've got a better regulatory framework, we've got a social acceptance, and we've got that demand just forever increasing. So there's a market research company called Markets and Markets, and they worked out that by 2023, the drone delivery market would be worth, it was 2.1 billion US dollars, right? And then the impact of COVID means that by 2030, it's going to go right up to 27.4 billion US dollars. So that's a 49% increase year on year because of this, the impact that COVID is going to have. So yeah, I think whilst it's a terrible situation to be in right now, I think it's always good to remember that where there's struggles, there's opportunities. And it's not about being opportunistic of people's struggles. It's about helping society when it needs it most. And it's about finding new solutions when our old solutions don't actually solve our problems anymore. And I think that's one of the industries that has had loads of new opportunities thrown its way is the drone industry. And in particular, drone deliveries.
So you, because you don't build drones, or I may be wrong with that, but whenever we've talked, you're very much, so have you been involved in the sort of regulatory stuff? Have you been part of those discussions?
I've been part of discussions with regulations, last year I spoke at Parliament, they were investigating into new changes in regulations and what that needs to take into account. I was there representing emergency services, but I was talking most about education. And my point there was that it needs to be education first, regulation second, because the problem right now is people breaking the rules because they don't know they exist, not because they want to. There is a small minority of people that are using drone technology, but any technology for malicious intent. We can't actually regulate against them. We create new regulations, they break the new regulations. But the people that are breaking the rules, that have no idea it exists, we can solve that problem through education. So yeah, I was speaking at Parliament about getting that point across, that if we can't just make our regulations stricter. That solves only a small part of the problem. It has to be more geared up to a good education campaign as well, targeting those like kids as well, because it's a new exciting technology that you know, I wasn't expecting to go into the drone industry when I was younger, because it didn't exist. So we've got kids that are so keen to learn any new technology, and we should hit them with the education as much as we should the people that are flying them now.
I suppose there's a difference though, isn't there, between the toys that we buy for the kids, you know, I think they've been around a while, just these little toys you play around with, and the sort of drones that you're talking about, what I would call the big, I don't know if industrial is the right word, but commercial maybe is the word, that are built. So I was going to say, if they've got to then fly beyond, I don't know much about drones. They have to, if we're going to have them flying beyond eyesight, presumably the regulations will have to be stricter, because it'll be like flying a very small plane, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. So the point you touched on about the toys, and I think that's been one of the most damaging part of, or the difficulty in educating people, because they've come from, this is how they've come into the consumer world, not into the military and commercial world, but into the consumer world. They've come from toys, and so even when you've gone from a tiny little thing that you can fly into the TV and it not even scratch the screen, to a phantom that actually, if you flew at someone, it could do serious damage, and in the worst case it could kill someone. But people haven't changed their mindset, so they still think they're flying a toy. And if I came along and tried to regulate the use of a toy, people wouldn't take me seriously. So it's a big challenge overcoming that kind of mindset of like, why do you need to regulate a toy? Why do you need to regulate drones? So now we've classified a toy drone as one that weighs less than 250 grams. Anything over that, and it can still be ones that are sold like toys. They can be over 250 grams and still do some serious damage. You don't want to fly them indoors, and you don't want to fly them at people. So yeah, that is a challenge. But yeah, the beyond visual line of sight, that of course needs to be regulated to the same level that manned aviation is regulated, and almost stricter, because you're not on board, so you have no personal connection to, if that drone flies into a tree, you've lost a drone, and that is painful for a drone lover, but it's not painful to yourself physically. So yeah,
expensive, I imagine.
Very expensive. The types of drones that are capable of that, you know, they're £100,000 would be cheap for one of those. So you know, we're talking big money. You don't want to crash one of them, but also the consequences of it crashing and dropping out of the sky, it could drop on someone's property, it could crash into another plane that has people on board. You know, this is the risks that we have to try and regulate and deal with.
That's pretty scary, Gemma. We'll all be looking up in the air now, wondering where the drones are coming from.
Well, I mean, regulations still is a small, tiny part of that, right? We can create the perfect regulations, but actually what is going to make that safe is the technology. And that technology, it's incredible. It's called sense and avoid technology. It can sense where a tree is or another plane is, and it plans its route around it. So the pilot's not actually doing that, because the human element of a beyond visual line of sight flight is the weakest component, because you can't see it.
So and it's also much more like AI. In a sense, it's much more like AI in the sense that there's a certain amount and it tells itself.
Exactly. So it is AI, At the moment, it's at the stage of machine learning. So the way that technology works is you create an algorithm and it starts as machine learning, and you've got to feed it loads of data for it to learn and understand. And then once it starts kind of thinking for itself, if you like, it becomes AI. So at the moment, there's the technology readiness level is around machine learning, and at the moment just needs a lot of data to get more intelligent.
Wow. It's all fascinating stuff, but I do know that your heart lies in emergency services, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I imagine, because one of the things about this summit we're doing is this idea that we can change people's lives. And actually, funnily enough, I've been watching that thing about the fire in Weymouth Forest recently. Wareham Forest, one of the big forests, big. Now, so I suppose drone technology in that respect is perfect because, you know, you've got a lot of living people out there trying to put a fire out.
Yeah.
So was much drone technology used for that one?
For that one, I imagine so, because Dorset Police do have a drone, well, one of the most used drone teams in the country, actually. Dorset, Devon and Cornwall Police drone team, one of the most advanced. So I imagine they were there. For a fire, so there's two different types of uses for or categories for drone usage in an emergency service. It's strategic, so it helps with your strategy, and that's when it keeps your people safer. And then tactical, which is how it works towards the resolution of the incident, so finding a missing person, for example. And for a fire, it does both of those things, because not only can you get the drone in the sky and have that instant situational awareness information, so you can then inform your firefighters their tactics and keep them safe, but you can then do a 3D map, or you can use a thermal camera to work out the for a structural fire. So in a building, it would be the room of origin, would be the point of origin for a wildfire, and you can work out which direction it's heading, and all kinds of useful information to help you tackle that fire better.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you the $100 question now. The future, life after COVID and beyond.
Yeah.
How do you see drone technology and the work you do sort of changing, or will it change? How do you see it panning out as we go forward? And you're allowed to use your imagination on this one.
Imagination. Oh gosh.
How would you like it to pan out?
Well, I guess at the moment, like, drones are much quicker to get to the scenes than helicopters, but they're still traveling with the responders, right? So what I would like is kind of a network of drones. They are in their own drone hub, their drone box, scattered around the country, and as soon as they're needed, they're tasked to a fire, tasked for a missing person, that kind of thing. So a network of drones. And this technology, I'm already part of projects that are working on this. And you know, there's a lot of funding bids going on that are looking at this technology. So someone's going to be successful for that bid, and someone's going to then develop it on. So I reckon that's within 5 to 10 years reach. And then that could be a shared asset across the ambulance service, to fire, police, search and rescue teams, mountain rescue, and it's just a network of drones that can be used for emergency response. And you know, it could also be used for infrastructure inspection. If it's not being used, obviously emergency response would take priority, but there's so many other use cases that the network of drones could be used for. And that's, I guess, my vision for emergency response drones. And the vision for medical deliveries by drones, that's as exciting, I think, at the moment, because it's one of the newest kids on the block for the drone industry, and it has so much potential. I think one of the first use cases for that will be just-in-time pharmaceuticals, which are things like chemotherapy. They have a really short, like, shelf life, I guess would be a generic term, but it's product stability in the chemical world. Some of the chemotherapy drugs, from being compounded to needing to go into the patient, is about 45 minutes.
Wow.
So that means, you know, there's a big need to deliver it quickly, and drones are perfect for that. So yeah, it can really change how we
Would that work the same then for organ transplantation? Because that's always the issue, isn't it, with organ transplants, that when you take it from one body, you've only got a certain amount of time to get it to the next hospital. So I suppose the same sort of issue there.
Exactly. And in fact, in Baltimore, in the USA, they've recently delivered a heart via a drone.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's happening. Bloods and pathology, they're being delivered. COVID related stuff, but other vaccines as well will start to be delivered. I think organ transplants, bloods, and just-in-time pharmaceuticals are going to be the first that we'll start using drones for, and then we'll start branching out into all kinds of other delivery, and it's really exciting.
It is. So this all started from your sort of university dissertation to you. Is it still you, or do you have a bigger team now?
I mean, I have lots of partner companies. Within my company, I also work with a guy called David Lane. He works, runs our training and events. So when I do have training and events running, then he works full time on them with me. But I'm still the only one that's working all year round full time. But yeah, I'm never alone on each project because I have lots of great partner companies that, depending on what requirements for that particular project, I've got companies that I work alongside with. So yeah, like Drone Stream, Halo Drones, lots of great, most of them are other startups as well, so it's a great culture to be part of.
Wow, it sounds like it. Well, thanks for having the chat with us.